This week we are trying Blue Apron. Steven has been a lot busier at work lately, so I feel like we've been slacking a lot in the home cooked meal department here. We've been doing a lot more like convenience and frozen foods just because it's easy, and for whatever reason we are both getting home so late now, or like not that late, but a lot later than we're used to. I wanted to try a meal kit / meal delivery service to see if this could be an option for us, just because I want us to have healthy meals and like a variety. And I feel like some weeks we're not quite getting that just because of how limited I feel on like time and cooking and things like that, because I really don't want to cook an elaborate meal. I like to eat my dinner early, so pretty much want it as soon as I get home. We're going to see if this may be an option. What is interesting about Blue Apron is that they have both the meal kits and the prepared meals. This week we are going to try the meal kits, and then next week we'll try the prepared meals. On Blue Apron's website, they do say that the menus are curated by chefs with 5 decades of experience at top restaurants, so we will see how they taste. So what we did this week is we got the meals with like 4 servings. So we're going to cook 2 servings for dinner and then save the other 2 for lunch the next day. So I'll also kind of see how they hold up in the fridge and everything. But the main things that we are going to rate the meals on is how easy they are to prepare, the taste, and also the nutrition value. I have picked the udon stir-fry noodles for today. I just opted for the vegetarian one, so it doesn't have any protein in it, but it does give you an option to add protein. Like you could have picked to get the protein through Blue Apron, but we did not. But you still have the instructions for it. So I have shrimp at home, so I'm just gonna throw in some shrimp for the protein in this meal, but it's supposed to take 15 minutes, so we'll see how long it takes.
Flavor is. It just tastes like noodle flavor, which is pretty good.
I think it's pretty good. I added too much spicy, but overall the flavor was good. The only thing that I have to comment on is that I feel like the portion size is rather small. All of the portions look like this. And I feel like if you were a grown man such as Steven, probably not quite enough for a full meal.
Buy more add-ons.
Product. I definitely botched the presentation on this one. It was hard for me to make it look anything like the picture. Let's give it a taste. I think it was okay. It tastes like a sushi bowl. It did take a lot longer than the instructions said it would. I think the instructions said 20 to 30 minutes and it took me like 45 minutes. Maybe that was my own fault because I'm just like, I think a slow cook in general. But overall, I think that this one is a pretty good meal. We tried out this recipe today and this is how it turned out. not quite the same. Cheers. I think this would have been good with some kind of protein. Yeah, it is better than the Trader Joe's gnocchi. Tonight we are eating the pesto pasta, and I am convinced that the pictures are always like 2 servings at least, because I feel like our serving sizes, and this is Stevens, which is a little bit bigger, are never that big for like 1 serving. Unless this is a really shallow plate. It's extremely cheesy. Depends on if you really like cheese. I think overall flavor is good. Do you add like, yeah, crushed pepper, crushed red pepper flakes? I feel like that always makes pasta taste really good. Okay, brief intermission just to say that I went upstairs and took a shower when I put the potatoes in, and I came down and oh my gosh, it smells so good. The potatoes, like, what do they put in the seasoning? It doesn't say anything at all, it just says Spanish spice blend, but I assume it's like paprika and like maybe some cumin or whatever, but whatever the blend is, it smells really good. I really want to eat the potatoes right now, but they still have like another 20 minutes to cook, so I will restrain myself and work on making the rest of the meal. Got our shrimp and potatoes, which the potatoes turned out a lot darker because I forgot to check on them, but hopefully they'll still be yummy. We need a new salt shaker, and I need the blend of this spice blend for the potatoes. I think
you broke the salt shaker?
No, I just feel like I over salted the shrimp, because when I like pour it over, it just like all comes out, so it's really salty. The potatoes taste really good, and I really like the spice blend. We got this week's shipment of meals, and we went ahead and just got 10 total meals, and we picked a bunch of different ones so that we could try them all. So obviously the meat containing ones are Stevens, and then the vegetarian pescatarian ones are mine. So this is gonna be our dinner slash our lunches for the rest of this week. So I decided to have the salmon grain chimichurri bowl today. So this is what it looks like in here. I know, not super appetizing, but I think that the contents shifted in the transportation of this. So in terms of like preparing in the microwave, you basically just pierce it with a fork. So stab it a couple times, and then you let it heat in the microwave for 2 to 3 minutes, and then it's done. So pretty simple and easy. This is the microwaved product. I think that there's supposed to be rice in here, but I don't really see much of it. I think it's covered by all the chimichurri sauce. Yes, rice, wheat, barley. It doesn't quite look like this, but that's fine. The portion size is a little bit small. And then Steven got he has the coconut korma chicken with rice. And what did you say when it came out of the microwave? You said that it looks a little sad.
Oh, yeah.
It does smell good though. It does smell good. So that is one thing. It tastes reasonably good. I think the flavor is pretty good. For dinner tonight, I'm having this falafel and rice bowl. And then earlier for lunch today, I had this 4-cheese enchilada with rice. I forgot to take a video of it. It didn't look quite like the picture, but somewhat similar. I don't think there's quite as much rice as there was on there, but here we go. And Steven has there's a chicken and kale farro bowl. Yeah. Because the sauce kind of got separated from the rest of the bowl, and there's feta in here, but the feta is only in the part where there's sauce. It kind of tastes like there's curry, but the falafel is good. Okay, moving on to the review portion of this video. I'm going to kind of split this into 2 sections. So we'll talk about the meal kits and also the prepared meals kind of separately, because I do feel like they were different enough to warrant sort of different reviews. So we'll start off with the meal kits. We got 5 different meal kits from Blue Apron, and so we made them all, either me or Steven, for dinner, and then we would pack it for lunch the next day. So I feel like for the most part, they all held up reasonably well in terms of like having them for leftovers, or if you wanted to meal prep them for the week, you could totally do that. In terms of ease of preparedness, I'm not really sure that it saved me much time. I think that the time that it really saved me was like going to the grocery store, which maybe only takes about an hour and a half, which to me doesn't feel like a lot, but you know, to other people who are a lot busier, maybe this is something that you would benefit from. I personally like grocery shopping because I like to see what's new and what items are at the grocery store, and also to pick out my own produce. But I could see that some people that don't like grocery shopping would enjoy this option a lot more. Personally, did not feel like this saved me very much time because I still had to cut and wash all of my produce, and that is really where I am very slow. I am a slow cook, so I feel like even some of these estimated times, like I went way over. Like the 15-minute one I think took like over half an hour for me, and that's probably more of a me problem than it is like the recipe problem, because I'm sure that there are people that could do it in 15 minutes, but I'm not one of them. I cannot physically cook that fast. These I did not find to save me very much time, and for that reason I would rate it a 5 out of 10 in terms of ease of preparedness. It's basically like if I were to make my own meals at home, which I basically did. In terms of taste though, I do feel like they tasted pretty good. I would rate them a 7 out of 10, a little bit above like average. The recipes were pretty good. My favorite one was the salmon and sushi rice bowl, and Steven's favorite one was the pesto pasta. So I think taste is really subjective. Moving on to the nutrition value of these meals, I'm gonna kind of use my criteria that I use for looking at like fast food meals. So looking at the saturated fat, the sodium, the dietary fiber, and the protein. So in terms of saturated fat, I think that overall it did reasonably well. Most of the meals were about 30 to 40% of the daily value, which is fine. I think that there were some outliers that were like much higher. There was one that was 95% of the daily value, and that one was the gnocchi. And I think that it was mostly because this meal has a lot of like dairy, so a lot of cheese and like cream and things in this meal. So that definitely increased the saturated fat content of this, which is to be expected. For the most part, I think that the saturated fat content was reasonable. It could be better, but it was reasonable for these meals. And then in terms of the sodium, it was a little bit higher on the sodium side than I would have wanted. I think they could have done with a little less sodium. Like there was one meal where it was like you were adding salt to like everything that you were preparing. It was actually this garlic shrimp and Spanish potatoes one. It was like every item that you prepared, you like had to salt. In general, when I'm cooking, I don't salt everything. I kind of maybe salt at the end. I guess the good thing about having a meal kit is that you can definitely take out some of that salt. So you can customize it or modify it however you want to, and you can definitely choose not to salt everything as much. And I think that I would probably recommend doing that. In terms of dietary fiber, I don't think that it really quite met the goals. I would have liked to see a little bit more more variety in terms of like the vegetables, and also just like a little bit higher fiber content, more different produce, because I feel like a lot of them were the same. Like there was bell peppers in like 2 of these meals, and I feel like, you know, we could have maybe tried some different vegetables. But with regards to the protein, I think that they were all pretty much around the 20 to 30 gram range, except for the vegetarian one. And I think that this one was more of an outlier. This one had about 13 grams of protein, but even the gnocchi and the pesto pasta, they were kind of like within the 20 to 30 gram range, despite being vegetarian and without any other additions. But I feel like you could always add your own protein to these to boost the content. Moving on to the prepared meals now, I think that in terms of ease of preparation, it is definitely a 10 out of 10. Could not get any easier than this. Like, I don't think that there's anything that you can do that is easier than putting something in the microwave and just having it be done in like 2.5 minutes. So definitely 10 out of 10 on that front. In terms of taste, I feel like it was, dare I say, a 7.5, like maybe 8. Steven definitely said it was an 8 out of 10 in terms of the prepared meals. I feel like these actually tasted really good. I was honestly a little shocked. I think that it may have even tasted better than the meal kits. But in terms of my favorite, it was actually this one, the sesame ginger salmon grain bowl. The sauce on this was really good. It was, okay, maybe a little bit salty, but it was really good. And the salmon is, although small, I think it was not overcooked even after like microwaving it, and it was still like flaky and tender. And so I was kind of surprised, because I feel like sometimes with these meal kits especially, they get really dry. Like the salmon just gets dry and it doesn't really taste good. And I think that we were able to maintain the moisture in this, and so it tasted really good. And for Steven, he had a couple of different meals, but he said that his favorite were all the pasta ones. So he liked like the the bolognese, ravioli, and the rotini. He enjoyed all of these as well. I feel like they definitely, like, visually didn't look as appealing, but they smelled and tasted really good. Nutrition value, I would rate this one probably a little bit lower than the meal kits at like a 5 out of 10. So they're pretty average in terms of like comparing it to frozen meals and like fast food. There were comparable amounts of saturated fat to the meal kits. I think that they also ranged around 30 to 40% daily value of saturated fat. Obviously there were some outliers, like the enchilada, the cheese enchiladas. These also had 95% daily value of saturated fat, which is a lot, but obviously like there's a lot of cheese in this, and so it's gonna have a lot of saturated fat. In terms of sodium, they did have a little bit more sodium compared to the meal kits, and I think that's kind of to be expected. I feel like in order to make these taste good, they probably added a little bit more salt. Taking my favorite one, for example, this one, I definitely felt like it tasted too salty, and it did have a lot of sodium in here. There was 1,600 milligrams, which is a lot. The other ones weren't quite as high. Like there were some that were definitely more reasonable in like the 970 range, or like closer to 1,000, but I feel like in general they all kind of were around the 900 to 1,300 range. And so they definitely had a bit more sodium compared to the meal kits. They also had a little bit less fiber compared to the meal kits as well. I also feel like there just weren't as much veggies. Like this one, for example, I didn't even know that there were Brussels sprouts in there until I just looked at it right now and I saw, oh, there's a Brussels sprout. I don't remember eating that, because all the veggies were really cut up super small, and so they were a little unidentifiable, and I think that we could have maybe added some more veggies, but nevertheless still tasted good. Protein was also comparable and reasonable, around the 20 to 30 gram range. Definitely could have aimed a little bit higher, closer to the 30 gram range, which is what I typically prefer, but you know, overall it was fine. However, I do want to note one thing, and that is about the portion sizes. These portion sizes for the prepared meals were a lot smaller, I feel like, compared to the meal kits. And I think even some of the meal kits had smaller portion sizes than maybe I would have prepared for myself and Steven at home. There were definitely some days when Steven especially felt kind of hungry when he normally wouldn't have after having lunch or dinner. And so I think that that's just something to kind of like keep in mind, that I know that they have to cater these to kind of like everyone. And so it is hard to come up with a portion size that is perfect for everyone because everyone's gonna want to eat different amounts. Even me personally, I felt like some of these portion sizes were a little bit small, and even for the meal kits as well. So you may just like need to bring snacks with you. The prepared meals were definitely, I think, smaller than the meal kits because they were ranging about like 450 to 600 calories each. Whereas the meal kits, they ranged from, it was a bigger range, but I think that there were some outliers. These ranged about 400 to 800 calories per serving. And I think more of the meal kits were on the higher side. Like there was just like maybe 1 or 2 outliers that were kind of in the 400 range. And I think that there's also some meals that are specifically like 600 calories or less. And so if you picked one of those, like obviously it's going to be in like the 400 to 500 range. But all the other ones I think are closer to like 700 or 800 calories each. And I think that those portion sizes were a little bit bigger. Okay, so overall, I feel like it tasted pretty good. I was a little bit disappointed by the lack of variety, especially in like the meal kits, because I feel like meal kits are the most opportune time to try different recipes and different vegetables. And I don't think I really experienced that when I was doing the meal kits. I think that for the most part, these are all kind of like meals that I would probably already make at home already and kind of are in my meal rotation, or like similar to meals that are in my meal rotation. In that sense, I was maybe a little bit disappointed, but I also appreciate the fact that Blue Apron doesn't try and market itself as being something that it's not. It's not like labeling all these meals as adhering to like certain diets. I like that for the most part, like these meals are just like, they're just normal meals. They're not like keto or like Whole30 or whatever, because frankly, I don't like all those labels and I don't believe in fad diets. So on their website, they do have like certain labels, but they're more like, this is just carb conscious, or this one has 45 grams of protein, or this one takes 15 minutes or less. And so I think that those labels, I don't really have a problem with those. There was one that I saw that was like nutritionist pick, and I was like, okay, well, what classifies that as being a nutritionist pick? And I couldn't really figure out the reason why. And so the only thing that I could come up with was that like maybe they just didn't have a good label for that, and so they were just pick something, you know. But I think that overall, I appreciated that fact that they weren't trying to be something that they weren't. And these are some regular meals that people eat, and some of them have less carbs than others. I think like maybe like if you're a diabetic and you're trying to stay within a certain carb count because of the way that you're dosing your insulin, I think that that's something that is very appropriate. In terms of price, I also thought that it was like, you know, pretty reasonable. It was in line with most of the other meal delivery kits and meal delivery services. It is a little bit more expensive than buying your groceries, but you do have to factor in the fact that you're getting the convenience of either A, like having the groceries delivered to your door, or B, having meals that are already prepared and made for you that you don't have to do anything. All in all, I think that I would say that Blue Apron is a decent meal delivery service. I don't know that I would quite give it the dietitian stamp of approval, but I would definitely consider ordering it again. I think that it has a lot of potential, and I would probably just be a little bit more conscious of like looking at the nutrition labels when I'm picking out my meals, and just picking things that are maybe a little bit like more balanced and that don't have like 95% of your daily value of saturated fat. That pretty much concludes my Blue Apron review. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please be sure to give it a like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!